start. I think we are good to go. Welcome to a conversation where science meets speculation and innovation challenges the tradition. As chronic diseases continue to strain global health system, we ask, can artificial intelligence really serve as a therapeutic ally, or is it just a futuristic illusion? Hi, this is Pankaj Gupta from Ethel Venture Partners. We are a zero-based revenue scaler and fund based in Singapore with approximately 120 startups in our portfolio. Today's panel is blessed by some truly remarkable and diverse healthcare leaders who cut through the hype to uncover whether AI is rewriting the rules of chronic care or simply rebranding old hopes with new code. To start the introduction, I will request our esteemed panelists to introduce themselves. If I may start with James. James, please go ahead.
Sorry, struggling to find it. Morning, everyone. I'm James. I started off life as a doctor, mainly doing research into sudden cardiac death. And because of the complex nature of the heart, as a simple medic, I was forced to learn some maths and learn a bit of coding so we could do computational modeling to try and predict who is most likely to have one of these inherited conditions. And it was during my PhD that it occurred to me that some of the modeling we were doing for sudden cardiac death could be used to predict other outcomes. And we were already back then, 10 years ago, starting to use these neural networks and also repurpose a lot of the digital technology that existed in retail and banking at the time. And the idea was we would take some of these technologies and start applying them to primary care in the UK to try and empower patients to take more active roles in their health by being able to self-manage in the community, but also start to use this vast amount of data that was beginning to be made available to clinicians through electronic health records that were increasingly linked across primary and secondary care. And the issue we had then was not that we didn't have the data, it's like, what do we do with the data? And that was before we had genetic data sets like UK Biobank and a few others coming on. Yep. So it's fantastic to be invited. And I think the real question is, now that we have a lot of very impressive technologies at the moment, are they yet sufficient to actually be useful for management of chronic disease, given the amount of data we have? So I really look forward to discussing that.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, James. Really appreciate your time today. And I'm sure that we are going to learn quite a lot from your experience, especially in Europe. So thanks a lot for joining us today. Sowmya, may I request you to go next, please?
Hi, everybody. I'm Sowmya Srinath. I'm Director for Advisory Services at Frost & Sullivan. I've been with Frost for the last 20 years and worked across the healthcare sector globally. I've headed global medtech portfolios and then moved into larger, advisory business in healthcare. What I've seen in the last 2 decades is how the industry was product-driven, which is a device or a drug. That's what was the core that they were pitching. To today, there's a shift in the industry. It is transforming into a service industry with the same drug or the device, but not just servicing the customer, but also engaging them through platforms. So that entire transition or transformation is what is redefining the health industry. So happy to be on this conversation with elites here to understand how AI can make a difference in chronic disease management. 2 buzzwords in the industry. We will be able to share details more during the conversation.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Sowmya. And because you come from consulting background, especially with experience in Asia Pacific, I'm sure that you are going to provide some really different and unique insights to this panel. So really appreciate your time today. Sardar, may I request you to go next, please?
Sure. Very nice to meet you. I'm Serdar, the co-founder and the CEO of the Albert Health. Before Albert Health, I was working in the Siemens and IQVIA. Albert is a evidence-based multi-chronic disease management platform that leverages AI. We are focusing on to increasing treatment adherence of the patient and improving quality of life of the patient with the AI-based solutions. We are partnering with pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, the hospitals. I'm very happy to be part of the panel.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Sardar. So Sardar is not clinician, but he has been the innovator, building the company and growing it in different parts of EMEA region and now in Asia Pacific as well. So I'm sure that he's going to share a lot of entrepreneurial, experiences throughout this session. Now I would request Professor Abhay, who is also an entrepreneur plus consultant surgeon. Professor Abhay, please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Pankaj. So my background is I'm actually a cold-faced clinician. I still practice medicine on a daily basis. And I have been excited over the last few years to see the potential of what technology can do to address three core challenges of healthcare. People are talking about chronic diseases, but do you know that 4.5 billion people don't have an access to a doctor? Do you know that healthcare is actually going to put 40% of the planet into poverty lifelong with one hospitalization? And let me frighten you. Medical errors is the third commonest cause of death. We are looking at a completely inefficient system which was designed based on the resource constraints it had, but it has not evolved the way it should have. We've added complexity and technology layers without realizing that the whole system needs to be redefined. And that's been my passion over the last few years. So when I look at AI, I don't just look at AI, I look at the whole process, how technology, access, and a bit of humanity is all needed for the transformation. So I'll be delighted to hear, I'm quite excited to hear James's view, because predictive medicine is the future. We should all aspire to a world where no one gets sick. We should predict diseases before they happen. Almost like a car. A car doesn't break down on us anymore because we've got yellow lights.
Yeah.
What James is talking about, a yellow light for humans. Say, okay, I know now this machine is going to get into trouble. Let's get it serviced. It's an aspiration which is very worthy, very difficult, but worth pursuing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Professor Abhay. Again, really excited to hear your views today. And now I would request moderator of the session, Dr. Zeynep, to introduce herself. And I know that she has really prepared some interesting questions for all the panelists. So Dr. Zeynep, why don't we get hot, sizzling feedback, insights from our panelists? Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Pankaj. And hello, everyone. My name is Zeynep. I'm an internal medicine specialist, but I'm also a digital health enthusiast. For nearly 3 years, I've been working in a healthcare company, a digital healthcare company as well. And since my background, I've dealt with chronic patients a lot, and I've seen what are their pain points as well as physicians' pain points. That's why a solid digital tool could make this kind of digital healthcare in a very improved way. That's why I've enjoyed being in a digital health company. And I want to thank At Home for bringing us together, because we have a very strong, solid room at the moment. So as you know, in chronic diseases, conditions that demand lifelong management and become deadly and expensive. And we know roughly 2/3 of global deaths and the majority of health spending are tied to chronic conditions. But thanks to fast improvements in technology and AI in healthcare, how we prevent, as you said, how we predict, how we diagnose and treat chronic diseases are changing. And right now, smart, rapid, and personalized solutions are becoming like a new standard, we may say. So now AI has started to be considered as a therapeutic agent in many diseases and disease areas. And I want to ask firstly, when we say AI as a therapeutic agent, what exactly is the role of AI in clinical interventions? Do you think AI is replacing clinical intervention, augmenting it, or should it still remain only as a supportive tool for the healthcare professionals? So firstly, I want to ask this question to Dr. Abhay Chopada. Since you are a surgeon and also quite active in healthcare solutions, what would be your thoughts on this? What exactly is the role of AI in clinical intervention? And do you think AI is replacing the clinical intervention, replacing the physicians, as a classic question? What's your thoughts?
Thank you so much, Zainab. And you've actually started with a question that's very dear to my heart. To start with, let me put it that AI is still early, so we have to put our guardrails. We yet cannot allow it to be a complete replacement for anything. And I can see that it will be a tool to augment a doctor. Today, clinical efficiency is one of the big challenges. We are 2.5 million doctors short globally. So when you think about how can we make a doctor more efficient, that can address the shortage. Is AI ready for that? I think it is. We just have to ensure that it is integrated correctly into clinical practice. But it does have a darker side. And the darker side is today we train our young doctors on clinical material. Once we start using technology and make the doctors more efficient, it's going to have a direct impact on how do we train the future generations of interventionists. How do we ensure that the humanity, that is a core part, the communications, which is a core part of any intervention, is safeguarded? Because Google came in, and I still remember the year was 2014, when I started seeing patients who were coming with a whole printout of what their diagnosis was. And I'm glad to say that 99% of them were inaccurate. So information is not the problem. Information that applies to you is correctly deciphered for you and actually helps you get better is where the challenge lies. Now, with the best of technologies, you cannot replace that part. That is very human, very emotive. Yes, we will have bots that can be very sympathetic, which can speak in a very human tone. But it still is a little bit of a distance away. We ourselves have been pioneering with medical bots. Early experiences that they are amazingly good to augment a clinician. And the third challenge that I said, medical errors, I can definitely reduce them quite significantly. All the errors of omission can be history. We can start looking at how can a doctor be put on autopilot. But that's where I would stop at this stage to say, listen, we need to build the right access tools. Giving tools to a doctor is of no use if the patient can't access the doctor. Giving digital tools to the doctor, if he can't speak the same language as the patient, is again of no direct usage. So we have to think beyond just tools. We have to think about how do we ensure that the patient gets the outcomes that he or she truly deserves. So thank you for that question. But once again, I'll summarize to say, definitely a tool for augmentation, not a replacement. Early days yet, a huge amount of caution is needed. Cannot replace straight away. But yes, we should get into the clinical space, showing doctors what they can access to.
And thank you, Dr. Chopada. Autopilot was a great example to think this AI in medicine. That was a great example. Thank you. I actually want to hear the thoughts of Dr. James as well on this, but also I want to ask this to you, Dr. James. In medicine, we say there are no diseases, only patients. And then especially when I've heard this from a lot of physicians, doctors, as a mentor to me, when they want to emphasize that we should be patient-centric, when they want to say this, okay, there is no disease, there's only patients and patient-specific treatments. So how do you think AI-based personalized care, because right now the medicine is going on that way as well, focusing on the patient care in a personalized way. How do you think that AI-based personalized care in chronic disease management can create a new value for both patients and also for the clinicians?
Perhaps if I start with the answer to that question, I think AI itself is perfectly positioned to do exactly what you described, because what it enables patients to do is use tools that were only previously available to doctors. So historically, as we innovated in medicine, the innovation was almost exclusively around the doctors being able to prescribe new medication, or surgeons being able to use a new instrument. And that gets more and more sophisticated, and we have targeted immunotherapies now, and we have robotics, surgical tools. What AI is enabling is patients for the first time to be able to manage their own health using tools. And to me, the word AI is helpful, but it is also misleading. patients have used AI, doctors have used AI for decades. It's not a new thing. The big thing that's shift is some of these tools within the umbrella of AI have got to a stage where we can do so much more and patients can start interacting them directly. So I think it's a crucial shift that's happened, which is putting the patient bang center, which is good for the health system, it's good for the patient, it's good for the world, because for the first time, patients in countries that don't have developed healthcare systems can start accessing healthcare without having to buy hundreds of thousands of pounds per annum worth of drugs or having to access expensive hospitals. They can increasingly self-care in the community using these tools. And the only way that works, to finish a very long-winded answer to your question, is if we get there before the historical disease develops. Because at the point that someone has lung cancer, you have to go and see an oncologist, you have to go and see a surgeon. Currently, AI is not going to fix that. It's going to improve the management of those conditions, which are clinically led. But we can deploy AI in a way in the community to prevent disease development, to improve health. And that's the really exciting bit, which will be a shift change globally, not nationally. Trying to remember the first question. So the first question, yes. So I think I was never the best doctor at all, and I know there's other clinicians on the call who'll be much better, but I probably could only ever deal with at tops 50 different data points, maybe 100 different data points per consultation with a patient. So I would get blood pressure, pulse, maybe an ECG, get some symptom signs, but never really more than 100. And I would try and take a fair sample across the entire record, a fair sample from what the patient's saying, a fair sample from the labs. But it was always ever really, my human brain was limited, and I would do my best based on guidance to give a working diagnosis, a treatment option to try and improve outcomes. I think there's not a doctor in the world who won't say, it is impossible for me to now look at a longitudinal record that goes from birth to present day, that includes not just traditional blood tests, imaging, but also increasingly genetic data, and be able to input all of that into my brain and output a working diagnosis and management plan. So there is a huge, I believe, from the clinical fraternity, need and excitement about these tools. And just to finish on this, I think the tools aren't new. We had the first, and willing to be correct, I think the first tool was in the 60s with the Framingham Heart Study predicting CVD risk in 10 years. And that was a breakthrough, but that wasn't AI or, strictly speaking, machine learning. That was just an algorithm. But we've been using tools in cardiology and in CVD in particular for coming up to 70 years. And we now still use QRisk. And QRisk is helpful, but it is just a basic algorithm. And I think increasingly we have tools to make that targeted, personalized, which enables early intervention and patient-led management. So I think we're not doing anything that's drastically new. We're just using more sophisticated, better tools. So I think it's an exciting stage. We have to be cautious about using AI generally. And I don't know if we'll go into this, but depending on whether you're using these LLMs and these probabilistic models, which are great generalizable models, but they're black box and therefore they're difficult to regulate and use for specific purposes, versus traditional ML, where you have a binary classifier, which you can regulate, you can validate, you can prove where it goes wrong. And I think just knowing within this bucket of AI what tools to use for what purposes, make sure they're safe, they're explainable, that they're not biased, are going to be the challenges. But I think it's not such a big shift as people believe. It's just increasing the quality of the tools that we've got at our fingertips.
Yes, thank you, Dr. James. Exactly. My thoughts was just like this. The doctors have a very qualified option to reach more detailed data and clinical outcomes, but at the same time, patients are now able to access health in a much cheaper and easy way, and the medicine is becoming more centric to the patient. And I believe Dr. Chopada has a comment. Please go ahead.
No, thank you so much. I just wanted to augment James's point. James has made a very powerful statement that it is much better to go for early intervention. but also what we are now capable of is starting to see what we previously couldn't see as to shifting nature of disease, or actually look at its genesis much better. Our treatment options have changed over the years. I still remember the first treatment for cancer was pure surgery. Then came chemotherapy. Then came biologicals. And now we are talking about vaccines. And all this happened because we could analyze the data better and better. So our understanding about what is pathology is going to be the key to a healthier future. Not just interventions, but also to understand, are we really thinking correct? Are we really on the right track? And I'll give you a very simple analogy. Before antibiotics, every fever was considered to be potentially lethal. Tuberculosis at sanatoriums where we had to put people and just assume they're going to die someday. That all changed once we actually found that one tool called an antibiotic. AI is going to augment that discovery. What we are not realizing is, as we speak, the development time for new tools is shrinking from years to hours. And that to me is tremendously exciting. And James, you absolutely mentioned the genetic data. It's a gold mine. It's a gold mine that we currently cannot decipher. But give a longitudinal life history with adequate outcome data, and that genetic data can unfold mysteries that we previously could not access. So really, I'm glad you brought that point out, and I really want to say that's a very exciting future we are looking at.
Thank you, Dr. Chopada, for the information. Yes, definitely the fast we achieve the information about the data we collected from any kind of medical source, we are more willing to, or we are reaching the solution in a very quick way, and that's why the medicine is actually going forward in a very fast way. But I want to also get the opinion of Sowmya in terms of AI-driven personalization in disease management. As we said, that the patients are very easily have the access to healthcare, and it's became more personalized. Now they are going to ChatGPT to ask their own question about their own information. And now we have different tools to manage our diseases as patients. So what's on your thought about, from a market and system perspective, which you have a strong experience and vision? What's your thoughts on AI-driven personalization in disease management?
Want to answer this a little differently. I come from a non-medical background, so you will not have any clinical information or experience in my discussion. It's purely industry viewpoint. So what we have seen is the fact that no one individual who is a chronic disease patient suffers from only one chronic condition. They are at least suffering from 2 to 3 chronic conditions on an average globally, is what studies and research and government initiatives are speaking about. So when it comes to 2 to 3 chronic conditions that a doctor or a set of doctors have to manage, so ideal scenario, you give a drug to a diabetic patient, and the same drug to 10 other diabetic patients, the effect should be same. But the effect is not the same. And why? It's not just to do with the drug, it is to do with the individual and the kinds of ecosystem that they work with, right? So the parameters that go along the journey makes a difference on how the outcome is going to be. So again, coming from the industry background, healthcare expenditure is growing from 10% average GDP spending to today 17% spending on GDP. Healthcare spending is 17% of GDP in the US. It's expanding. How come healthiness quotient of the population is not expanding? That's the primary question that people have to address. So you can't just keep increasing the cost without better outcomes. Again, bringing back to the simple diabetes ecosystem, if government is prescribing medications for all diabetic patients, and diabetes is like if I can say 1 in 3 individuals have a risk of diabetes, probably 0.5 in 3 individuals have a diabetes condition and are probably taking insulin also. If that is a scenario, and countries like US, etc., pay for the medication. So if they have to take 3 insulin shots, it's being reimbursed. Despite all of this, despite decades of investment in diabetes, how is HbA1c not being managed? And how is early screening or diagnosis not helping? It has nothing to do with the drug. It is not just to do with access. It is about even when it's reimbursed and when it is given to the patient, the lifestyle, the way they are taking the dosages. Are they taking it on time? Are they taking 3 doses as per the prescription? And are they having a healthy lifestyle after taking their insulin shots? All of this makes an ecosystem, right? Now, all of this does not happen inside the clinic in front of the doctor. That is why the data and the ecosystem to manage them is the first step. Okay, like what James mentioned, we have had tools, we have had digital tools to enable this ecosystem, right? Then why is it not addressing the core problem of managing HbA1c control? Because it was not able to understand and tell what was impacting the HbA1c controls. So the data analysis and tools that are currently being developed are addressing it. That personalization of care is required for the patient and the clinician to understand, hey, your HbA1c is not in control because every time after you eat, you have a 3-hour nap. That's what is the cost. You need a 6,000 steps per day, but you're only doing 2,000 steps per day. That is the cost. Your stress hormones are very high. That is the cost. Whatever the cost is, the lifestyle plus medication and plus the entire ecosystem management is what is going to determine what can work and not work for that particular patient, which is why it can't just be doctor and a digital tool that can make a difference to the investment in healthcare. It has to be the connecting the dots, which is where AI comes in driving personalized care. So this is how, from the industry, we see platforms being developed to support patient management. I'm again calling it patient management, not chronic disease management, because we are not addressing the symptom. We are treating the patient for the entire set of series that they require support for. And that is why the future of personalization is going to be AI enabled with a non-hospital centric approach for better management of these diseases.
Thank you, Sowmya. Actually, you are right. When we're actually saying patient-centric, we are actually mentioning, I believe, the self-management of the disease by the patient themselves. Now, thanks to the technology and AI, we can monitor, actually the patients can monitor what they are doing wrong or right at home. And with the tools we created for disease or patient management, we can give direct feedback, more personalized feedback for them to, create meaningful, better prognosis of their health. So I want to actually want to bring this discussion into a more evidence-based round. And actually, Sowmya, your comments were quite an initiative. And we all know that AI is moving beyond clinical decision support systems. But the real question is, has it truly started to generate therapeutic impact? And what evidence do we have at the moment? And Serdar, I know your company has some evidence, and would you like to contribute on this?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Zeynep. Yeah, it's an excellent question. I think the short answer is yes. AI has started to generate measurable therapeutic impact, especially when we broaden our understanding of what therapy actually means in chronic disease management. Because if we only define therapy as a molecule or medical device, AI is still on the periphery, as other also panels say. But as a startup founder, I like to also broaden this kind of the terms to the more commercial aspects. So if you recognize it as a like sustained behavioral change, treatment adherence, daily engagement are therapeutic interventions in themselves, then AI is already here and it's working. At Albert Health, we have clinically validated this. In our randomized clinical trial with multi-chronic patients, our AI-based disease management program achieved an average reduction of 1.07 percentage points in A1C levels, which is roughly equivalent to what we expect from a, like frontline diabetes medication. And that's not just engagement. This is, like a real therapeutic impact for our diabetes product. We saw it. And what's even more powerful is how it's achieved. Our AI assistant interacts with patients in their own language, understands their routines, and adapts micro interventions to this behavior, encouraging them to take medication, log their glucose, and adjust lifestyle patterns. So it's not just prescribing, but it's continuously reinforcing therapy between the doctor visits. So to me, the AI has already started redefining what the treatment means. And it's not about replacing clinicians, it's about extending the therapeutic window into the everyday lives of patients. As you said, it's putting the patients the centric like never before. And through empathy, personalization, and the data-driven coaching.
Thank you, Serdar, for your insights and evidence comments on this. But I want to also hear the thoughts of Dr. Chopada on this, since you have the active work on clinics as well. So what do you think? What are the clinical evidences that have a real impact on patients' life or active practice of medicine?
Yeah, so let me answer this from two different perspectives. When you look at direct clinical practice, it's not yet fully visible. AI is still seen with a lot of suspicion by a lot of clinicians because they assume that ChatGPT is all there is to AI. And when they put something in ChatGPT, they get answers which are sometimes not accurate. Having said of that, in clinical medicine, there's already a good impact that's already happening, but it's invisible. So when you now look at what is happening in radiology, what is happening in pathology, what is happening with record management, as Sardar is saying, what is happening with behavioral changes, tools are getting adapted. But you need to again understand the clinical mindset is always change resistant. So whenever something changes in healthcare, the easiest bit to move is admin. And let me put a very simple example in front of you. Most of our hospitals in UK have Cerner or Epic. We pay $25 million a year for it. When you look at clinicians using it, you will be appalled. Clinicians use it nothing more than just a cut paste tool. And the reason is it wasn't designed for the clinician. Even when we are now talking about a future where AI needs to get integrated, don't assume the patient or the doctor are two separate entities. That is not healthcare. There is no patient-centric or doctor-centric. You have to talk about a doctor-patient interaction-centric. Everything in healthcare happens when a doctor interacts with a patient, directly or indirectly. And that is the one unity you have to empower. If you just empower the patient, it doesn't work because the doctor is left alone. If you just empower the doctor, the patient's left alone. Don't try to do that. Whenever you're planning any intervention, say, I'm going to influence the doctor-patient interaction. Whether it is data flow, whether it's change management, whether it's behavior management. Because remember, medication adherence, a common problem. 60% of patients above 60 fail to remember to take their medicines regularly. That results into a more than $1 trillion impact of unnecessary wasted medications. So you can change that, but who's going to monitor it? The clinician. So I again will submit to that. We use the word patient-centric without realizing that there's no such thing as a patient or a doctor. They are one entity. It's only when the doctor is with the patient, the doctor is helping the patient make the right decisions. It's nothing more than that. So when you stop talking about DPI as the single unit of transformation, it'll start to make sense. Otherwise, innovation's been around for as long as I remember, and nothing stuck. In fact, the biggest example is the UK's national program for IT. I happen to be one of the young directors. We spent £16 billion and then scraped it. Wasted £16 billion of national wealth purely because they did not understand this one concept. That change management has to be influencing the two core stakeholders of health, patient and the doctor. There's no other stakeholder. Everything else is a peripheral stakeholder. You want to talk healthcare, talk about a DPI. And wherever the DPI was influenced, that has stuck. CT scans, MRIs, they were talking at the DPI. So every innovation that I've analyzed over the last 40 years, that has been successful has helped the doctor when he was with the patient. That's a DPI intervention. Even for AI, we have to keep that mindset open to say no. It can't be patient-centric, it can't be doctor-centric. It has to influence DPI.
Thank you, Dr. Chopada. Actually, maybe becoming kind of a bridge between the patient and the doctor with the help of AI or technology can create the ideal healthcare system to provide better healthcare for people. So thank you for your thoughts on this. Let's shift from can it work to how does it sustain itself in the real world? As AI tools move from pilot to practice, which revenue and actually the payment models align incentives across patients, providers, and payers? And Sowmya, would you like to give your opinion on what business models are emerging for AI in chronic care? Licensing, per patient reimbursement, or outcome-based? Thank you.
We can't hear you, Sowmya.
Your voice, yeah. Now we cannot hear you. Now still, I cannot hear. Yeah.
Probably we can bring Sardar in first, and then
Yes.
while she's figuring out the mic. Yeah. Sardar?
Yes, Sardar, maybe from a startup side, which of these models are more practical, and what do you see value-based care becoming the new standard? Because we know in that kind of approach as well. So maybe we can have your opinion on that.
Actually, it's a very timely question because I believe it's we are still in a transition phase, but the direction is clear. In early days, the most AI in health companies relied on the simple licensing. We all tried the simple licensing per user fees. But the chronic care is a very, especially in chronic disease, chronic care is a long journey, not a one-time transaction. So the real value isn't just in software itself, it's in the outcomes the software enables. So as Alberta, we have experimented several models like licensing for scalability with pharmaceutical companies, hospital partners, per patient contracts with insurers who want predictable cost structures, and outcome-based partnerships where we get reimbursed based on measurable improvements like adherence or like hemoglobin A1C level reductions. What we are seeing is that hybrid models works best. A baseline layer combined with outcome incentives. It allows to stay commercially sustainable while aligning incentives with patient health. And ultimately, I believe this is where the industry is heading toward the value-based care, as you also mentioned. Whether it's through digital therapeutics or AI-driven chronic care platform, the future business model will reward the impact, not the usage. The more our algorithms prove they can deliver the clinical outcomes, like reducing hospitalization, for example, the closer we will get to AI being recognized, reimbursed as a true therapeutic agent within a value-based ecosystem. So exciting part isn't just the technology, but it's the economically. AI has a potential not only to improve the health outcomes, but to realign how healthcare value is created, measured, and paid for.
Great, Sardar. Thank you. And Sowmya, let's try your voice and would like to hear your additions as well.
Sure. Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay,
Yes.
so I want to share that what is the difference between all these platforms, the business models from what it is today to what it was a decade ago or 2 decades ago. Earlier, it was always about the payer and the company that was generating the revenue. But in this ecosystem, both the payer and the company that is actually generating revenue have also initiated to place the patient in between. And why? I'll give you an example. This is from France, where the simple story about COPD patients, people who have chronic pulmonary diseases, obstructive pulmonary disease. So when they were being prescribed options for treatment, they were being prescribed the most sophisticated device. and it was just about using the device, and their COPD should be managed. But because the patient bought the device that was paid by the government after being diagnosed, and they had it at home, but still usage was not regular, they ended up coming to the clinical facilities more often than required, and spending more on drugs, spending more on drug consultations and other consultations, and taking bedtimes, etc. So the overall cost effectiveness of this device was put under question. So that is when the ecosystem changed. How do I enable this to push the patient to adherence? So this was a decade ago, and the initiatives that they had taken was to say if the patient uses this device through data, they were able to prove then the number of visits to the doctor should reduce by 20%, in a 6 months' time. So if that did not happen, then it's not on the device, it's on the patient. So the premium or coverage for COPD was reduced, etc., which impacted the patient. So the patient became more responsible. So with that as an example, now when new tools and technologies are coming into the ecosystem, people don't want to just take the ecosystem without keeping the patient in the value chain. So the entire value-based care is to add value to the patient, but patient also provides their support as required into the ecosystem. They can't be just, oh, I'm getting paid, I'm getting the device, let me see if it works on me. They should be equally responsible. So the shift in positioning into making the patient responsible is also an ecosystem. So in that value chain, the companies are ready to take the risks, and that is why they're moving towards risk sharing model, which is the outcome based model. They will get to have a higher cut on the share, which means I am able to save so much for you as a healthcare ecosystem. So I take a percentage of the savings, and which is what is going to be valuable for me and you and the patient and the healthcare ecosystem. So today's company, which are investor backed, and with, if I can say, with kind of futuristic leaders, are able to take those risks and change the business model from a licensing or pay-per-use model to outcome-based model. So for every 4 new startups of the 10 that come in, they are like only outcome-based model. And then probably 3 of the rest 7 or 4 of the rest 7 are probably going into the hybrid model. It's only the 3 of the 10 that are still in the conventional model, not willing to take risk, etc. Right? So that will die by the end of this decade, because everybody wants to get a higher pie of the shared savings that they are able to generate. Hence, they are able to go through this outcome-based model. And has it worked? Clearly has worked. Companies have made huge differences. And like what Pankaj mentioned, that because I'm coming from the APAC ecosystem, I have immense respect for companies in China that have really transformed how health can be managed much ahead of our counterparts in the West. I mean, I'm based out of Singapore, so I can always see the world is moving east now and south, because China has larger chronic disease management platforms than many other companies that I have tracked during my 20 years in other parts of the world. And the way they engage the patient, it's not just the patient, they are trying to capture the family. And because it is a family ecosystem in China, it works for them because they will have similar diseases, similar conditions. So moving away from patient to the family also generates more cost. And that is how the ecosystem is going. So they are able to manage chronic disease management, predictive health, and also healthy quotient management, and cater to the family audience completely. So these are just examples of how people are moving from traditional business models to outcome-based models.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sowmya, for your comprehensive comments. And I believe Dr. Chopada has another one. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm slightly concerned about this question. I'll explain it to you. We are still trying to talk about how do we pay, but this is an ecosystem play where regulation has a huge impact. China is not succeeding because the startups are making money. In fact, the startups are losing money left, right, and center. The government is pumping in money. When you want to look at a system change, you cannot start looking at profitability or a unit level economics. You have to start looking at ecosystem based return. This is much bigger than what I look at healthcare startups left, right, and center, and I can tell you 95% of healthcare startups will end up bankrupt. It doesn't matter if they make money on a small stint, they'll never succeed to get the full change because it's not a small problem that we're trying to solve. So when we start talking about an ecosystem play, you have to align all the stakeholders to ensure their economic survival. And that involves when you actually look at how do you make money, the hospital has to make money, the doctor has to make money, the patient has to save money, and the regulation has to ensure that this is supported. Now, Sardar mentioned that he's tried with the licensing model and then moved to a hybrid model. And I'll tell you, both those models will not survive beyond a point. Because once you start scaling it up, the unit economics doesn't survive because to scale, you need a lot more money than what your returns are. And Sowmya, this is a classic economic problem. And the nearest example I have is mobile phones. Do you know that the world spent more than $1 trillion to put the infrastructure in place if we started paying our $10 or $20 a month? That spend had to be taken in anticipation of a return. So when we talk about healthcare innovation, we should stop talking about economics at a lower level. We should start talking about how do regulators get engaged in this conversation so that the real transformation is possible. If we do not get the regulators in, we are fighting a losing battle on day zero. That's at least my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chopada, for your thoughts. Actually, since we're talking about regulations, I want to ask one tiny question to Dr. James about the regulations around AI, not in the coverage of in the economics, but just a quick question about, the regulations is where the promising ideas meet the real world guardrails from CE Mark, SAMD, and EU AI Act to FDA and fast evolving Gulf frameworks. The rules and their paces shape actually the adoption. So across the EU, US, and Middle East, what notable differences stand out in regulatory approaches and how are they evolving? James, could you give it, since we are out of time, can you make a little quick but have an answer, please?
I think it's a great one to finish on because it is the question, and I completely agree with Abhay that regulation is going to be key, but doing it right is essential because it can also stifle innovation. And I think the one part of the world that is doing this best is the United States. They're going at breakneck speed when it comes to regulating AI as a medical device. Now, that doesn't mean China's not at breakneck building the tools. They're just not regulating the tools at the speed that they are in the United States. The UK, for example, I think is failing on this metric. The MHRA has regulated 2 or 3, only one class 3 medical device, and yet America has already done 100 this year or so. Regulation is key both from a payer perspective, from a patient trust, a clinical trust perspective, and if we don't get it right, we're going to fail. And I think just bringing it back to this topic, it's almost a mature market now regulating AI when you have relatively simple models. So when you're dealing with, for example, convolutional neural networks that are looking at radiology images, they're looking at pathology images, they're looking at pictures of skin, we can regulate that model to a class 3 medical device to say that it has a sensitivity of 99%, specificity of 95%, and we can prove that's the case, we can regulate it, we know it's safe. The issue we're going to have and have already with complex multimorbidity, which is what we're talking about, so one of the other panelists mentioned this, when it comes to chronic disease, is we're using much more complicated black box models. And the key distinction here is about causation. These are not causal models. We are not talking about causal AI here. So, I'm sure Albert Health are able to demonstrate a drop in HbA1c. I would suspect that is a correlation, not a causation. And whilst you can demonstrate there is a change, you, I think, will not be able to regulate an intervention beyond lifestyle modification until you can prove causation and explainability to show there's not bias, that your assumptions are correct, and that your counterfactuals are strong. So I think specifically to the management of chronic disease, regulation is going to be tough. For any impactful change beyond improve your diet, do more exercise, stop smoking, the usual lifestyle changes. And I think that the person who cracks that hurdle, regulates a product for the management of chronic disease, will really change this and move the dynamic forward. But yeah, regulation is key. I still believe America, whilst it's failing in lots of other places, especially around technology, the handcuffs are off. They are regulating at breakneck speed and producing tools where the world can purchase. And I think we should try and emulate them in Europe and in China as well.
Thank you, Dr. James. I believe regulation is a lot wider than we're speaking right now, but thanks a lot for your comments, and thanks for all the panelists for their valuable insights on this beautiful object. And I want to close the session now since our time is up, and I want to give words to Pankaj. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Zana, for moderating the panel. I think you were able to extract the right insights from the diverse panel that we have today. And again, thanks a lot, Professor Abhay, James, Sowmya, and Sardar, for your insights on how the ecosystem is evolving and what are the true impacts of AI on the chronic disease management. So really appreciate your time today. Now we will be doing a quick transition and going from a panel to the pitch of Albert Health. So Sardar will do a quick presentation on what is Albert Health's solution, and then he'll be willing to take a couple of questions and insights from the panelists. Sardar, please.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen.
Yes, we do see it.
Okay.
So please go ahead.
Albert Health is a multi-chronic disease management platform that leverages AI. The challenge we are focusing on is treatment adherence. Even the best therapy fails if patients with chronic diseases don't comply, driving higher costs and mortality. Globally, over 50% of people with diabetes skip medicines, and lifestyle adherence is even lower. This costs the health industry $600 billion each year. We empower patients with medical articles designed by doctors, metric trackers, and medical insights based on patient-reported outcomes. Medication reminders to increase adherence. Smart device integrations, including Apple Health, Google Fit. Also, patients can record their symptoms, nutrition diary, and share them with their doctors during the telehealth consultation. Our AI-based voice assistant, trained by doctors, supports every user. Yet, the true backbone of the app is its personalized gamification journey. By completing tailored tasks, users advance through disease management skill levels, ensuring engagement, confidence, and sustained health outcomes. Our differentiation comes from AI engine that drives personalization in disease management. Our medical team design every journey to ensure clinical accuracy, and our AI continues to adapt these journeys based on patient data from the app. Each user gets a unique path. Zeynep with obesity and prediabetes won't follow the same journey with Osman with diabetes and hypertension. How we are creating business value across the ecosystem. Pharma companies work with us to activate patients and generate real-world data. In one of our clinical trials, our app improved treatment adherence from 62% to 85% within just 3 months. Insurers partnered with us to reduce healthcare claims and market differentiation. Here, what it looks like in practice. In a diabetes cohort of 1,000 people, you can save $173,000 with Albert Health. Healthcare providers to open new revenue streams and increase patient loyalty. These are some example disease management programs which we created for pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, and hospital groups. In like 6 weeks, we are launching a disease-specific program, either from our existing portfolio or tailored to customer focus. It can run as standalone solution or be integrated to customer app. Here's a quick overview where we stand today. We have raised $3 million to date and delivered disease management program with 19 B2B customers across 3 languages, English, Turkish, and Arabic. Our partnerships include leading global pharma companies such as Roche, Pfizer, Novo Nordisk, hospitals like Memorial or like healthcare providers like NHS, and insurance like Taunia, Bupa, and Medisa. Is it valid? Yes, Albert is CE certified under the European Union Medical Device Recognition Regulation, MDR. It has been recognized as a Class 2A software as a medical device. We believe chronic disease outcomes improve only with patient empowerment, and Albert Health exists to make that a reality. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Sardar, for this quick overview. Now we should be able to take some questions, and I would say brutal, honest questions, feedback, and guidance from the panelists. Please go ahead. Who wants to go first? Professor Abhay?
No, thank you. Sardar, very impressive work, and I think it's very timely. The challenge, as I see it, is how do you get people to adhere to your program despite the app and the gamification? The challenge of chronic disease management is not lack of insight, it's lack of action. And people continue with bad behavior despite knowing that it's going to hurt them. So can you help me how you can influence that?
Yeah, sure. Yes, as you said, it's one of the biggest challenges. That's why we are trying to utilizing the gamification for us. And also we are using the voice technology. We have an AI-based voice assistant. For example, even when you set a very simple pill reminder, Albert, our mobile app is talking, like it's time to take your medication. Albert is motivating patients with the voice-based notifications, vocal communication. So it's, for people of all ages, all socioeconomical levels, it's the most convenient interface. It's very easy. The Albert is just talking and helping them. So we are also bridging the patient and the doctor, and we are trying to give a sense of the doctor is following you. The doctor will see all these data in your next appointment. So with all these motivations, we are trying to keep the patients in the mobile application.
Just one follow-up question before I hand over to everyone else. How about digital inclusion? A lot of chronic disease patients are immobile and not necessarily digitally enabled. Because you're only talking about the Western countries, but I look at the global picture.
Correct.
So how can you actually ensure that they are also included?
Yes. Actually, we have a caregiver module for them. For example, their daughter, their son can use Albert, and we are creating a connected profiles so they can enter the data, they can, control the profiles on behalf of them. They can, by the way, authorize their caregivers, but like just read only or edit my data. We have an authorization structure for the caregiver. This is the one methodology. The other one, as I also say, like we are also trying to use the voice for easy, not key. I don't want them to use the small keyboards, complex menus. They can just talk and ask a question or enter their data. So these are the methods we found for that.
And I'm very satisfied with both your answers. I think it's an excellent initiative. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm pleased to hear that you're satisfied with the responses from Sardar. That's fantastic. James, please go ahead.
I just wanted to add, you mustn't underestimate the power of gamification. I'll give you one example. Gamification is fantastic at getting people to do things that they don't want to do. And the example that happened before I heard about Albert Health was with Duolingo. So Duolingo managed to make learning languages fun. Before that, no one liked learning languages. Now there's more people learning languages on Duolingo than there are in the entire secondary education system in the United States. The issue with Duolingo is the outcomes don't change. Going back to our previous conversations, people aren't actually learning languages anywhere as near as fast as they do in the traditional methods. They are logging into the app every day, they're playing with their parrot or whatever it is, and they're getting their badges. The fantastic thing, as I understand it, about Albert Health is not only are you getting the engagement through your gamification, you're also getting shifts in that outcome, HbA1c, and presumably others as well. So I do think gamification and engagement of patients is the tip of the spear of using AI for chronic disease management. I will say that the really exciting bit, which goes to our earlier conversations, is about new ideas, new assumptions. What is actually driving these diseases? Not going back to the original, what do we traditionally know about diabetes, hypertension? It's like we can use these models now to discover new causes, new interventions, intervene early, and make some really big shifts.
Thank you for your comment. As we agree, by the way, if you just increase the engagement, but if it doesn't create a real value for the patients, it's meaningless. That's why, as Albert, we are 3 engineer founders, by the way. But in a very early stage, we saw that, okay, we are engineers, we need doctors in our team. Then we created our medical team for the understanding, for the real impact, for the science behind the disease. So they are designing the patient journeys because, as you said, like as an engineers, yes, the chief product officer of Duolingo is also a Turkish guy, by the way. We are really, following the Duolingo, their gamification. But at the end of the day, we are turning to the doctors. Can you please also the designing the patient journey so we can reach the proper goals? We are trying to understand the new types of the interventions with the engine by combining with the engineering, the AI, and also the medical, the knowledge.
Thank you, James. Sowmya, anything from your side?
Yes. So I wanted to understand from you about who is your current customer. I'm not speaking about the user, it will be the patient, but who is your customer? Are you taking it directly to the patient, or you're taking it to VUPAs and other parts of other sets of people, right? Who is the major customer?
Yeah, our business model is B2B2C. The patients are not paying anything. Pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, and hospital groups are paying. They are our real customers. For example, we have a companion app for multiple sclerosis patients of Roche. Roche is paying. We are collecting real-world data for the Roche. We are increasing treatment adherence of MS patients. The doctors are able to monitor the MS relapse, MS attacks, what happens at home between 2 appointments. They are getting psychological support. They are asking questions about the MS to our voice assistant, Albert. So the payers is always the insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, and hospitals. Why we built like this? Because in the countries we are active, in the out-of-pocket spending in chronic disease management is low. That's why we are running in this model.
So the reason why I asked you that is also who's your customer and the user, right? Because when we advise and work with companies, we look at what are the opportunities that they could tap into in the short term. And we always say it can't be the long route. There should be some quick wins. And how about employee wellness programs? Because large conglomerates look at these platforms to take care of their ecosystem of employees who are in different age groups and could be suffering from different conditions. And not all of them require each of your service offering, but majority of them could require one or two of your service offering. And that could actually make a difference to the company in maintaining their productivity, their cost to insurance, etc. So is that a sector that you're looking, because that's B2B? I want to know, is that something that you have evaluated, tried, or looked into already?
Yes, I definitely agree. Especially in chronic diseases, which are more common than the others, like diabetes,
Yeah.
obesity, for example.
Yeah,
So hypertension, these are very
behavioral
common.
changes as well.
Yeah, and they are triggering the chronic diseases, and employers also focusing on those ones. So we are also creating the employer specific programs with insurance at the companies. So the employees are using it as also like a predictive programs, or like if they are already have the disease, they are managing their treatment with us.
Okay, great. Now, the next question that I have is, you have definitely taken a look into multiple chronic diseases, but these are not the only set of chronic diseases. There are many more. So I call them the classic chronic disease and new age chronic disease. So some of the new age chronic diseases are not listed here. Are you looking at expanding your services beyond what you have focus on currently?
Yes, definitely. As a startup, the focus is key. So our biggest priority is metabolic diseases,
Perfect.
which has very eligible for the lifestyle modifications, behavioral change. But we are also focusing on the other diseases, like we are as a therapeutic area, we are very active in oncology, we are very active in the neurology, and we are also looking for the other part. But then we have, as a startup, we have always limited resources, so the focus is key. The biggest priority nowadays is the metabolic diseases, but yes, we're gonna expand into the other areas also in the future.
Great. Good to know. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again, all the panelists, for your questions. Do you have any guidance, any recommendation for Sardar on probably, product portfolio, go-to-market strategies, channel partners, potential channel partners in different countries? Any that comes to your mind at the moment?
Pankaj, I think one-to-one conversations will help.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
All startups actually need support.
Amazing.
It's a very lonely world. I keep telling people that it's not easy to be a startup. In fact, every single day you're worried about a lot of stuff.
Exactly. I would love.
And Sowmya, probably you also can help Sardar. We all can have conversations. It's an ecosystem. We all have to support each other. As I said, this is not a small thing we are on. This is a long-term change. We are looking at a very, very big change. So individuals have to support. And I'll tell you, it is not just an isolated, you do this strategy or do that. It's about saying, let's stand with each other. If you have a problem, you can have my ears. And I can absolutely see what I can help you with my network.
Amazing. No, really appreciate this support, this generosity, Professor Abhay. And as you said, being a founder is actually being pretty lonely and facing challenges on your own. So if we can have support from the community, and if we can all support each other in different initiatives, then why not? With that, again, thanks a lot for your time today. Thanks a lot for all the insights. And let's connect in one-on-one offline fashion to see how we can support each other. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. So nice to meet you. Bye bye.